guys, this is Rubi Velazquez with MRV Financial, and as promised, I have here my friend Andres Olaez with ReMAX Casa. He's going to be talking to us about real estate and just different topics. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. Thank you for having me here, Rui, and yeah, nice to see you guys. Not see you guys, but on the other kind of
virtually, por video. Love working with him. We do a lot of collaborations. Let's get into flipping. What can you explain the process for people that want to get into it, whether they're new or savvy investors? What are those things that you would recommend?
There's different ways of finding properties, right? Either getting in contact with your real estate agents, such as myself or my team or anyone, right? And find deals with whether it's in the MLS, but most of the deals that I find sometimes is off market, right? It's off market. There's tax sales, right? There's wholesalers there. But how do you analyze the off market deals such as auctions? You cannot even see the properties inside. So sometimes you could be buying a gold mine right there, right? Or you could be buying a can of worms or something, right? I always assume the worst. I'm gonna run into the worst inside the properties, but I do always like to see them at least to the outside so I can kind of get an idea. Go into our systems, such as our MLS services that we have as a tool. And there's pretty much different auctions that one could go on. One popular one that's always out there, so auction.com, I tell you like the auction days. When is this property gonna go into auction? Let's say March 16 or 17, whatever day it comes out. Do some research on the property, just see in Chicago, it could be in Plainfield, it could be anywhere. Starts at 50,000, and of course there's other people bidding on it, like okay, 51,000, 52, and it just keeps on climbing. You gotta know when you gotta pull out, right? For example, or apples to apples, right? I look at the property, it's like a brick bungalow, an example, right? Mm-hmm. And the brick bungalows there, fully renovated, are selling for 300,000, right? I know I talk about this all the time, the 70-30 rule, right? I calculate, okay, what's 70% out of 300,000, which is the ARV at in that area. So that means that my acquisition, which is my purchase price, and my renovations cannot exceed over, in this case, 210, right? My acquisition price cannot be over 110 for the purchase price, right? Mm-hmm. So that means that's the highest I'll go on that property, right? So I mean, of course, can you go higher? That's up to you, but now you're cutting into your margins at that point, right?
So how would you recommend that they do some due diligence to, like you said, you can't see the house that day, but you can look online for some pictures. Do you ever go visit the houses yourself?
Yeah, no, of course, drive around the house, look at the roof, the windows, like concrete, roofs, gutters. Just that alone could cost you a pretty penny as well. Right, so at least look at the outside, and then a real estate agent, maybe they can help you out. Like, hey, you know what? Is there any previous information on this or any previous pictures? Because sometimes our MLS has like old expired listings, mm-hmm. and we can see, oh, this was listed back in X date, right? And it might have pictures, or it might have a little bit of description that says like, oh, it had AC. That means it might have ducts in the property. Maybe they're good, maybe they're not, but at least you start picturing the house at least, right? Mm-hmm. I had two bathrooms, right? An example, right? And it's a single family. That tells me, okay, well, if they had two bathrooms, maybe there's a bathroom for sure in the middle, in the main floor, and there's probably a bathroom in the basement. That tells me it might have a finished basement. In what conditions it could be, again, we still don't know, but at least you were kind of visioning like the property more, right? So,
and again, you can make all these assumptions because you have so much experience.
I like to be very real with that. Like especially if somebody's coming to me, I want to buy an investment property, whether it's I want a cash flowing property, I want a flip or so on. Like, okay, what is it that you're looking for, right? And I like to be like, okay, this is what I see, right? Like, okay, this is how much they're asking for, and based on the comparables around on the property, this is how much I think it could sell for in the future, right? Now, renovations, I could kind of give you an idea, but I don't like to go into so much detail because sometimes my cost of renovation could be different from other people's cost of renovation, right? So that's a touchy subject. I just go for what's black and gray, mm-hmm. right? Like the acquisition and the ARV, and then I could kind of give you an example as far as how much it will cost you to renovate it, but at that point it's just an opinion for me, right? You will Normally, I always tell people like you got to get your own like contractor and stuff like that for that, just to so they could kind of get an idea.
We know a roof alone, that's what protects the house, and we take for granted that that is the one item that people do not update. Sometimes you could find a house with an original roof.
Mm-hmm. Another thing, when you're calculating your numbers, you always want to leave some room for error as well too, because it's gonna happen. We're not perfect people either, right?
Exactly.
So leaving some miscellaneous or whatever I call it miscellaneous, right? But just in case unexpected items come out, which they always do. And a bank will give you a loan depending on the damages that it has, right? A regular traditional conventional loan, the house has to be in livable conditions, right? If you don't have a kitchen, right, it's not in livable conditions. You need a kitchen to cook and stuff like that, right? If it's missing a toilet or stuff like that, it's not in livable conditions. So I'm just using some examples, right? Get your attorneys involved. I always do. Like if you're purchasing in Chicago, right, you can see the violations online to see what violations the property has. An attorney can also help you out with that. The property has any delinquent taxes, water bills that are owed. Yeah, you want a clean title in at that point, right? So you want to make sure not only, and those are items that sometimes people don't think about. You also not only want to assess the property as what's the conditions of it, what I gotta do, but also with a clean title at that point, right? And the only reason why I don't like flipping is because now you're getting taxed on your gains, right? On the rental side, it's the opposite, right? It's like it's a long-term gain, right? But now you're getting more help with your depreciations on the property. It reduces your taxes. There's more tax benefits to it. I like to focus more on the rental game because it's the long-term game that we're playing here, not the short-term game. Kind of flipping it to yourself instead of flipping it to the market, right? Let's just say you buy a property following the 70-30 rule. We know that the banks are only going to let you refinance up to 70%, or some banks 75%. That way, if you're all in on the property with acquisition and rental and renovations, right, you cash out 70-75%, you get your money back, or to pay back the investor that you got the money from, whatever method you do, the property at that point, right? So
the reason why people get into flipping is because they get that quick cash.
mm-hmm.
And they like the process of fixing it up and then putting it on the market to, make that money. So investing way to do it is to get several projects going at the same time, to kind of like treat it like a business. Because if you think that one flip is going to do the job, you're going to find out that that flip was not worth anything, because one of the things that I notice all the time is that they don't consider that tax liability that
mm-hmm.
you just talked about. It's going to be a short term. They're going to treat it as if you worked for this money.
Right.
So having one is not enough. From my experience, you do need to have multiple projects going on. Why? Because you lower your costs on the contractors, because you have several projects going on. So you're able to negotiate that to say, hey, I have 3 properties.
Mm-hmm.
How much would you charge me for that? And, kind of like a construction company,
mm-hmm.
right? A construction site, to say, go to this site and fix this on it. That's one of the opportunity where you are able to, use the same contractors. One of the things that I see too is that people don't think of the insurance liability that it comes with. Of a lot of people don't get into the flipping game because they think I got to have workman's comp for all of my folks. Mm-hmm. That's not true. You just need to ask your folks to have their certificate of insurance to come insured for them to sit on your project. Mm-hmm. Let's get into like the lending side of things, mm-hmm. and the different options that people have.
Yeah, so products, right, that for conventional products, more anything, they will allow you to buy somewhat of a distressed property, right? Maybe that needs upgrading with like new kitchens, new bathrooms, painting, stuff like that. It still has to be in working conditions, the property, your traditional one. FHA 203Ks, they do require everybody that's doing work on the property, which everybody's licensed, and you get a general contractor. There's other vehicles that you could do as well, such as Harmony Lending. Sometimes they charge you a certain percentage. If you have more experience, they give you less interest on the loan. Normally, they give you 12 months to use the money, and they help you purchase the property and renovate the property. And some I've seen that they could even go up to like 18 months, right? Depending. And of course, you also got private money, right? I consider private money more like, hey, Ruby, you got X amount of money that that you can let me borrow. I have this project over here going on, and I'll pay you, I don't know, 11% on your money, right? So now you're making a deal with your deal or your anyone. Maybe this person lends you 50,000, another person lends you 20 or 30, right? You're raising money at that point for this one project, right? But now you're getting a lot of people involved. At the same time, I mean, it's doable, right? And like anything else, you got to do a business proposition, right? Like, give me 12 months, I'll pay you X amount per month, right? Once you complete one and you pay these people back, right? The odds of they're giving you the money again, right? Like, okay, this person pay me back the X amount of money that I let them borrow and plus some. They're gonna let you borrow it again a second time around, right? It's credit. Like it's like the banks are not gonna give you loans unless you don't have good credit. Same thing with people, right? Same thing with people. Like if you want them to keep on letting you borrow money, pay them back, right? So don't run away with the money, like I said. But how do you pay them back, right? Is the question también, right? Either you flip it or you refinance the money to pay it back. People just overthink it. Something like, oh well, how am I gonna pay it back or so, right? Sell the property. That's how you're gonna pay it back. Right, or refinance it, right? It's just you just gotta have your numbers in line from the very get-go.
And the risk that people come across is that they fall in love with the house, and then they keep it for themselves, and then it does not. You're smiling because right?
It's happened
Talk
to me.
about that,
It's
right?
happened to me on my first investment, right? I kind of took ownership of the project, right? Like moving things around. Knocked down this room so I could put the kitchen in there, and it was like my first project that I was putting it together, right? And the kitchen came out really, really nice, right? Really nice. And I remember that one time, and I think that was the only time, right? The only time that I'm like, hey, you know what? After that, then just like, I mean, you're in there for business, right? Like go in there, fix whatever you gotta fix, flip it. I mean, if you want to keep the memories, take pictures, right? And then keep those right there.
So don't fix it for yourself because you're not gonna live in it, right? So the more money that you add to it, you gotta, like you said, you gotta run those numbers. It's gotta make sense of why you're investing into this property because there's no point in putting all these luxury items in a wrong zip code, for instance, right? Because it doesn't matter. You're never going to raise the value of the property because it's the inside. So falling in love with it is like the first thing to look out for. Don't fall in love with your own properties. It's going to happen. It happens to every first timer, right? Yeah. But then after that, you learn. So what do you recommend to those people that actually get stuck with the house because they just didn't know how to keep it as an investment? They fell in love with it. Like, what can they do to just kind of get back on their game plan?
I mean, you don't have to sell it. Just refinance it, right? Refinance it. You really want to keep it, refinance it, right? Pull the money out and reuse it somewhere else, right? Whether it's your own money, reuse it somewhere else, or pay back your investors, right? Or whoever, the banks or whoever you got the money from, pay it back so you could use them again to get a different one. If it's really the case, right, that you really fell in love with this property and you just don't want to get rid of it, right? Yeah. Then keep it, but recycle the money somewhere else, right? Yeah. So you could, now you're just going to have a mortgage at that point, right? Which is still good because at that point you're buying it under market value too. You're not paying the top dollar for this property over here, right? So it's like, it's another way of picking up a property and fixing it to your own likings.
You have to sell for whatever reason. What would that look like?
So more anything at that point, you already did most of your homework, right? The 70-30 rule, just to make sure that you have enough margin. At that point, know your numbers, how much money you invested into this property, the acquisition and the renovations, and then obviously you did your homework as far as how much you could sell it for, like once you're done. So after that, then of course just having the property nice and ready. It's your product that you're showing off now, right? So as a punto, you want to make sure you clean the house very well, take professional pictures. I cannot stress that enough. If you're hiring a realtor, they normally cover the costs when it comes to your pictures. So they pay for it. They're investing on your house on pictures, right? First talking to your real estate agent, and then so they could kind of give you pretty much a comparable market analysis just to see how much you could sell it, which you already kind of did it yourself in the beginning, right? But just to kind of line those numbers up, if at that point you sign contracts, each area has their own market time. Some properties sell within like 10 days, 15 days. Some other ones, 20 days, 30, 35 days. It has like different market times. Us as realtors, we started the market not only price-wise, but market time too. How long? What's the average market time in this area? Now, there's other properties that are sitting in the market because it's overpriced and so on and so forth. Now, me as an agent, I'm always like, hey, you know what? This is what I see in the market. Like I'm starting the market, and this is my presentation to you, right? Mm-hmm. Based on from there, now I could create my report, and it's a more accurate report at that point.
A realtor is your very first investor.
Yeah, so we're investing. No, for sure. Mm-hmm.
So you could expect to see us. Thank you so much for
sure,
everything.
Guys. Till next time.
Next time, see you soon, guys.